whispers of the infinite horizon. The night unfolded like a velvet tapestry, embroidered with stars that shimmered with secrets untold. Nayla sat by her window, her heart aching with the weight of her dreams. "Chase your star, even if no one sees its light," she murmured to herself, recalling the words of a book she'd once read. The world doubted her vision, but her soul clung to its glow like a moth to a flame. She thought of the oak tree that stood resolutely in the garden, its roots spreading deep into unseen soil. "We grow unseen before we blossom," a teacher had once said. Her journey felt like that tree, silent, steady, and unnoticed. But wasn't greatness always born in stillness? Nayla drew a deep breath, letting her doubts fade into the comforting rhythm of the night. When she was a child, her grandmother would tell her stories of the moon. "Do you see how it shines, even though the sun is nowhere near? That's what belief does, it makes its own light." Nayla closed her eyes, imagining the moonlight kissing her dreams awake. If the moon could thrive in the shadow of doubt, so could she. Her thoughts wandered to the pages of her favorite books, where characters braved impossible odds. "Strength is not in never falling," one hero had said, "but in rising every time you do." These stories taught her resilience, how to turn wounds into wisdom and trials into triumphs. She held onto their words, finding courage in their echoes. The wind whispered through the trees outside, singing a lullaby of endless journeys. Nayla imagined herself as a sailor on an open sea, guided only by the stars. "What is a dream but a compass?" she thought. Even if the horizon seemed unreachable, each step brought her closer. The rhythm of the wind urged her forward, a melody of quiet determination. The candle on her bedside flickered, casting shadows that danced on the walls like stories waiting to be told. Nayla remembered another line she loved: "Every shadow is proof of a light." It was true. For every moment of doubt, there was a glimmer of hope. She began to see her fears not as barriers, but as teachers, shaping her for the path ahead. The world outside seemed endless, filled with mysteries and miracles waiting to be uncovered. "Life is a book," her father used to say, "and each day is a page." Write boldly, Nayla smiled, imagining herself writing her own epic, filled with courage, joy, and unyielding belief. Her pen would be steady, her words defiant against the silence of unbelief. As she drifted further into thought, the night seemed to envelop her with its quiet reassurance. "The stars don't compete to shine," she mused, recalling another quote. "They simply existed, each fulfilling its purpose." She promised herself she would do the same, live not for validation, but for the sheer beauty of her calling. Her dreams were as wild and uncontainable as the waves, yet she understood their power. "The ocean doesn't apologize for its storms," a poet once wrote. Nayla smiled at the memory, feeling the truth of those words ripple through her. She wouldn't apologize for dreaming, for hoping, for believing. The world would have to make room for her waves. The soft hum of the universe seemed to lull her closer to sleep. But within that lullaby was a quiet roar, a reminder that dreams were not passive. "Hope without action is like a bird without wings," a wise writer had warned. She resolved, even as her eyelids grew heavy, to wake with renewed energy and take a step closer to her horizon. Her mind wandered to the idea of resilience, how the smallest seed could break through concrete with time. Faith and effort are the twin roots of miracles, she had once read. Nayla imagined her dreams as seeds, buried but growing. No storm or shadow could hold them back forever. They were destined for the sun. Nayla's heart swelled with quiet determination as she nestled deeper under her quilt. A river cuts through rock not by strength, but by persistence, echoed a line from her memory. She pictured herself as that river, flowing relentlessly toward her dreams. Each small act, each quiet effort would carve her path, shaping her destiny one day at a time. The night sky seemed to lean closer, as if to whisper its secrets. The stars are never in a rush, her mother once said, yet they always find their place. Nayla thought about the grace and patience. Perhaps she didn't need to rush either. Her journey, though winding, was her own, and every delay was a chance to learn and grow. She thought of the phoenix, rising anew from its ashes. Every end is a beginning, a story had taught her. Nayla found comfort in that truth. Failures and heartbreaks didn't define her, they refined her. Each stumble was a spark, fueling her rebirth. She closed her eyes, imagining herself soaring on wings forged by resilience. The faint scent of lavender from her pillow seemed to wrap her in a cocoon of serenity. Even the smallest light can pierce the deepest darkness, she remembered reading. Her dreams felt like that light, fragile yet unwavering. They didn't need to illuminate the entire path. They only needed to guide her next step. She remembered a tale of a kite soaring high, tethered by a single string. It is the tension that gives it flight, the storyteller had said. Nayla reflected on how challenges, though binding, often propelled her higher. What seemed like a struggle was often her wings in disguise. She welcomed the tug, trusting it would lift her to greater heights. The rhythmic ticking of the clock was a steady reminder of time's passage. "Do not fear the ticking clock," a writer once advised. It is not a thief, but a companion. Nayla felt a newfound appreciation for time. Each moment was a gift, an opportunity to align herself with her dreams. She promised to use them wisely, with purpose and gratitude. Her thoughts drifted to the seasons, how trees shed their leaves without fear of loss. Nature teaches us to trust the process, her journal once read. Nayla saw her life in seasons, to each moment serving a purpose, whether it was blooming or resting. She would embrace her winters, knowing spring always followed. The world outside was silent, yet her heart hummed with the melody of possibility. Doubt kills more dreams than failure ever will, she reminded herself. Nayla resolved to silence her inner critic, replacing it with gentle affirmations. "I am capable. I am worthy. I am enough." Her whispers became her lullaby as the night cradled her. Nayla imagined herself standing at the edge of a forest, the path ahead unclear, but enticing. "Courage doesn't always roar," she recalled. "Sometimes it's the quiet voice that says, 'I'll try again tomorrow.'" She felt the strength of those words, knowing that every step forward, no matter how small, was a triumph of its own. She smiled as she thought of the caterpillar transforming into a butterfly. "Change is never easy, but it's always worth it," a storyteller once wrote. Nayla envisioned her struggles as a cocoon, enveloping her in quiet preparation. Someday, she would emerge, her wings vibrant with the colors of her dreams. The thought warmed her heart. The stars seemed brighter now, as if mirroring her rising hope. Even the universe began with a single spark, she remembered. Nayla clung to that truth, knowing that her own beginning, no matter how small, held the potential for greatness. She didn't need the whole universe to believe in her, just one spark within herself. The warmth of her blanket reminded her of an old saying, "Home is not a place, it's a feeling." Her dreams felt like home, a sanctuary that no doubt could breach. She vowed to carry that feeling with her, wherever life's path led. It was her compass, her anchor, her unshakable truth. The night deepened, and Nayla felt herself drifting towards sleep, her heart lighter than before. The darkest hour is just before the dawn, a poet's words whispered in her mind. She knew the truth of it now. Her struggles were temporary, and the dawn of her dreams was near. She smiled, surrendering to the peace of the moment. Her final thought before sleep was a quiet affirmation. "I believe in myself." It was simple yet powerful, like a seed planted in fertile soil. Nayla felt it take root, growing stronger with every heartbeat. The stars watched over her, and the universe seemed to whisper back, "And so do I." As sleep began to cradle her gently, Nayla's mind wandered to the story of the mountains. They stand tall not because they never faced the storm, a wise mentor once said, but because they endured it. Her challenges, though fierce, were shaping her into an unshakable force. She felt herself standing taller, her spirit mirroring the quiet strength of the peaks. In her dreamlike state, she pictured a lone candle flickering in a vast, dark hall. "A single flame can ignite 1,000 others," echoed a line from her favorite book. Nayla realized her dream wasn't just hers, it was a light that could inspire others. Even if no one saw her vision now, she trusted it would grow into a beacon for those in need. Her grandmother's voice filled her memory, soft and encouraging. "The stars are not perfect, my dear. They have scars too, yet they shine." Nayla thought of her own imperfections, the wounds she carried from past failures and heartbreaks. Perhaps those were not flaws, but constellations, pieces of her story that gave her light its unique brilliance. The scent of the night air, cool and earthy, wafted through her window. "Be like the trees," she once read. "They bend with the wind, but never break." Nayla imagined herself rooted deeply in her values, her dreams swaying gracefully with life's uncertainties, but never uprooted. She felt her resolve grow stronger, as steady as the oak in her garden. She thought of a river carving its way through a canyon, the water flowing endlessly despite obstacles. "Your persistence shapes your world," her mentor had once said. Nayla realized that she was the river, her efforts creating pathways where none had existed. With each passing day, her journey edged itself into the fabric of her destiny. The stars seemed to blink knowingly, as if to remind her of an ancient truth. Every great journey begins with a single step. Nayla thought of the steps she'd already taken, the sleepless nights, the quiet sacrifices, the unwavering belief that her dreams mattered. Those steps, though small, had carried her farther than she'd realized. Her thoughts turned to a tale of an artist sculpting marble. "The masterpiece is already within," the artist said. "I only remove what does not belong." Nayla reflected on how life's challenges were chiseling away her doubts and fears, revealing the brilliance within. Each trial, though painful, was shaping her into something extraordinary. A gentle breeze stirred the curtains, reminding her of the winds that carried birds to unknown lands. They trust the currents, she thought, recalling a line from a travelogue. Nayla decided she too would trust the winds of life, believing they would carry her to where she was meant to be. Even if the destination was unclear, the journey itself held beauty. Her dreams seemed to unfurl like a flower in her mind, each petal representing a hope, a goal, a wish. A flower does not think of competing with the one next to it, she remembered. It simply blooms. Nayla felt a sense of freedom in that thought. She didn't need to compare her progress to others. Her journey was uniquely hers. The soft hum of the night reminded her of a story about the tides. They rise and fall, yet they never cease, the tale said. Nayla saw her own path in the rhythm of the waves, moments of triumph followed by moments of rest. Both were necessary, she realized, for the dance of life to continue in harmony. A shooting star streaked across the sky, a fleeting but radiant reminder of the extraordinary in the ordinary. Be bold, even if only for a moment, she thought, recalling advice from a mentor. Nayla vowed to take risks, to embrace opportunities with courage, and to shine brightly in every fleeting moment she was given. She thought of a farmer sowing seeds in the dark soil. The harvest always comes, the farmer said, but only after patience and care. Nayla imagined her dreams as seeds, each one waiting to sprout. The effort she poured in now, though unseen, was nurturing her future. She felt a quiet faith that her season of growth was near. Her breath became slower, deeper, as peace settled over her. The sky is not the limit, she remembered reading, but merely the beginning. Nayla smiled at the thought. Her dreams were boundless, uncontained by any ceiling. She gave herself permission to imagine wildly, to believe in impossibilities, and to trust in her infinite potential. The stars began to blur as sleep tugged her closer. Her last conscious thought was of a sunrise she'd once watched, its colors spilling across the horizon. The night always gives way to the dawn, she whispered. Nayla knew that her doubts, though heavy, were temporary. The light of her dreams would rise, painting her life with hope and purpose. And as the night held her in its quiet embrace, Nayla dreamed not of a world where her fears won, but of one where her dreams took flight. The stars above and the fire within her whispered the same truth. You are destined to shine. As the first rays of dawn crept through her window, Nayla stirred, her dreams lingering like whispers of wisdom. She sat up, her heart unusually light yet brimming with purpose. The fear that had gripped her for years, her worry of rejection when sharing her dreams, now felt distant, as if softened by the night's gentle lessons. Today, she resolved to face it. She stood by her window, watching the sky bloom into soft hues of pink and gold. Courage isn't the absence of fear, she recalled, but the decision to act despite it. The words gave her strength. Nayla's biggest problem wasn't the world doubting her dreams, it was her own hesitation to share them. Today, she would change that. After breakfast, she opened her notebook, flipping through pages filled with sketches of her vision, a nonprofit art studio for underprivileged children. It was a dream she had nurtured in secret for years, afraid of criticism or indifference. But now, her fear seemed smaller compared to the possibility of bringing light into others' lives. She hesitated, her fingers trembling over the keyboard of her laptop. Just one step, she reminded herself. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. She drafted an email to a local community leader, outlining her dream and asking for a meeting. Her heart pounded as she typed, but with each word, her confidence grew. Before she could second-guess herself, Nayla hit send. The fear lingered, but so did something else, a spark of exhilaration. For the first time, she had shared her vision with someone outside her own heart. She wasn't sure of the outcome, but that single act of bravery made her feel lighter, freer. The morning passed with a nervous yet excited energy. Nayla decided to take another step by posting about her dream on social media. Fear doesn't thrive in the light, she thought, remembering the words of a motivational speaker. She shared her vision and invited others to support or join her. To her surprise, the response was overwhelming. Comments flooded in with encouragement, offers of help, and connections to resources she hadn't imagined. The community leader replied to her email almost instantly, eager to discuss her idea. Nayla's fear of rejection had dissolved into the realization that people believed in her as much as she believed in her dream. That evening, she stood in her garden, the oak tree silhouette framed by the sunset. "The world was waiting for me all along," she whispered. She realized that her fear had been a shadow, and her courage was the light that dispelled it. She wasn't alone, her dreams had found allies. As she prepared for bed, Nayla felt a sense of peace she hadn't known before. She had faced her biggest fear and taken the first step toward her dream. The hardest part is beginning, she thought. Now, the path ahead, though uncertain, felt full of possibility and promise. And as she drifted to sleep, she smiled, her heart carrying a newfound truth. Dreams grow not only in silence, but also when shared. Nayla had turned her fear into fuel, and now she was no longer afraid to let her light shine for the world to see. The days that followed were a whirlwind of excitement and planning. Nayla met with the community leader, who was impressed by her passion, but warned her of the challenges ahead. "Starting something like this is no small feat," he said. "Funding, permits, and support, it won't come easy." Nayla nodded, her determination unwavering. "I'm ready for it," she replied. Her first obstacle came swiftly. Nayla needed funding to rent a space and purchase supplies for the art studio. She reached out to local businesses and charities, but received polite rejections. "We're not sure this idea will succeed," one donor said. Doubts began to creep into her mind, but she remembered, every no brings you closer to a yes. Instead of giving up, Nayla got creative. She organized a small community art fair, showcasing local talent and inviting people to donate toward her cause. The fair was modest, but filled with warmth. Children painted, musicians played, and neighbors connected. At the end of the day, she had raised enough funds to take her first step, a temporary rental for her studio. The pressure grew as her project gained visibility. Some people questioned her motives. "Why focus on art?" one critic asked. "Why not something more practical?" Nayla felt the sting of their words, but she reminded herself why she started. Art heals, she thought. It gives people a voice when words fail. She knew her dream mattered, even if others couldn't see it yet. Her friends and family offered mixed reactions. While some were supportive, others worried about her dedicating so much time and energy to an uncertain venture. "Are you sure you're doing the right thing?" her sister asked. Nayla felt the weight of their concern but replied with quiet confidence, "Yes, this is my purpose." The studio opened its doors, and the first group of children arrived. Their laughter and curiosity filled the room, affirming everything Nayla had worked for. Yet, challenges persisted. Supplies ran low, and the landlord raised the rent unexpectedly. Nayla worked extra hours at her day job to keep the studio running, often sacrificing her own comfort. One day, exhausted and overwhelmed, she sat alone in the studio, questioning her path. "Maybe I'm not strong enough for this," she whispered. But then she looked at the drawings pinned to the walls, expressions of joy, hope, and freedom. "Their dreams are tied to mine," she realized. Quitting wasn't an option. Determined, Nayla sought partnerships with local artists and organizations. Slowly, doors began to open. A nearby art supply store donated materials, and a retired teacher volunteered to help run workshops. The community, once skeptical, started to rally around her dream, seeing its impact on the children. The pressures didn't disappear, though. News of her studio spread, and more children wanted to join than the space could accommodate. Nayla faced the tough decision of turning some away while she worked to expand. It broke her heart, but she reminded herself, growth takes time. I'll reach them all someday. As her journey continued, Nayla learned to embrace the obstacles as part of the process. "The weight of the world can be heavy," she told herself, "but I am strong enough to carry it." With every challenge she overcame, her belief in her dream deepened. She saw each hurdle not as a stop, but as a stepping stone. Years later, her studio had become a thriving haven for creativity and connection. The same critics who once doubted her now praised her vision. Parents shared stories of how their children blossomed through art. "You gave them hope," one mother said. Nayla smiled, her heart full. "They gave me hope too," she replied. Looking back, Nayla realized that every moment of doubt, every setback, had been necessary. Dreams aren't meant to be easy, she thought. They're meant to be worth it. Her belief had carried her through storms, and now her light shone brighter than ever, not just for herself, but for everyone who walked through her studio's doors. As she stood in her studio one evening, watching the children paint with abandon, Nayla felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Her dream had faced rejection, pressure, and countless obstacles, but it had also grown into something beautiful. It was proof that even when the world says no, a heart full of belief can turn impossibility into reality. Nayla's journey was far from over. She still faced challenges, but they no longer scared her. Each obstacle was a chance to grow, and each success was a reminder of what belief could achieve. The dream isn't just mine anymore, she thought. It belongs to all of us. And with that, she smiled, ready for whatever came next. One of the biggest obstacles came a year after the studio opened. The landlord informed Nayla that the building had been sold, and she had only 3 months to vacate. The news hit her like a storm. The studio had become a second home for so many children, a place where their laughter echoed and their dreams found color. Losing it felt unthinkable. For the first few days, Nayla was overwhelmed with despair. Her savings were nearly depleted from maintaining the studio, and finding a new, affordable space in such a short time seemed impossible. But deep within, a voice reminded her, "You've come too far to stop now." She resolved to fight for her dream, even if the odds seemed insurmountable. She began searching tirelessly for solutions. Every evening after her day job, she scoured neighborhoods, made calls, and reached out to the community for help. But the responses were discouraging. Either the spaces were too expensive or they weren't suitable for children. "Maybe this is the end," a part of her whispered, but she refused to believe it. One evening, while flipping through her notebook of ideas, she remembered something her mentor had once said: "When you hit a wall, look for a door." Nayla decided to think differently. Instead of searching for a traditional studio, she explored unconventional spaces, empty warehouses, unused schoolrooms, even large backyards. During her search, she stumbled upon an old community center that had been abandoned for years. Its walls were cracked and the floors were dusty, but it was spacious and filled with potential. Nayla contacted the city council to inquire about using the space. At first, they were hesitant, citing the repairs needed. "This is going to take a lot of work," they warned. But Nayla was undeterred. She gathered a group of parents, volunteers, and local artists who believed in her vision. Together, they launched a campaign to restore the community center. They cleaned, painted, and repaired the space, transforming it into a vibrant and welcoming studio. It was exhausting, but the sense of camaraderie made every effort worthwhile. Funds were still tight, so Nayla turned to crowdfunding. She created a heartfelt video, sharing her story and the impact the studio had on the children. The video resonated deeply with people, and donations began pouring in from strangers who were inspired by her determination. Within weeks, they raised enough money to cover the repairs and purchase new supplies. On the final day of renovations, Nayla stood in the center of the restored space, her eyes welling with tears. The walls were now adorned with bright murals painted by volunteers, and the shelves were stocked with art supplies. It wasn't just a studio anymore, it was a testament to what belief, community, and resilience could achieve. When the studio reopened, it was met with overwhelming support. Families from across the city came to see the transformation. Children ran through the halls, their laughter echoing once again. Nayla felt an indescribable joy watching them, knowing she had saved their sanctuary. But the rewards didn't stop there. A week after the reopening, Nayla received an unexpected invitation. A prominent local foundation had seen her crowdfunding video and was deeply moved by her story. They wanted to partner with her, offering a substantial grant to help expand her studio's reach. The news left her speechless. Her perseverance had not only saved the studio, but opened doors to even greater possibilities. The grant allowed her to hire additional staff, offer free classes to more children, and organize community-wide art events. But the greatest reward wasn't the financial support, it was the realization of how deeply her dream had touched others. People from all walks of life shared how her journey inspired them to chase their own dreams, despite their fears. One evening, as Nayla watched the children painting under the glow of fairy lights, a young girl approached her with a drawing. "This is for you," the girl said shyly. It was a picture of a phoenix rising from flames, with the words "Thank you for believing in us" scrawled below. Nayla held the drawing close, her heart swelling with gratitude. That night, she reflected on everything she had endured, the doubts, the rejections, the moments of despair. Each obstacle had been a lesson, shaping her into the person she was now. "Sometimes the universe tests us," she thought, "to see how much we're willing to fight for what we believe in." The experience taught her that resilience wasn't just about enduring hardships, it was about transforming them into stepping stones. Her biggest obstacle had become her greatest triumph, not because it was easy, but because she had chosen to rise above it. And in doing so, she had inspired others to believe in their own strength. Nayla smiled as she drifted off to sleep that night, her heart full of peace and hope. The journey wasn't over, there would be more challenges, more walls to climb, but she no longer feared them. She had learned to trust the light within her, the one that guided her even in the darkest times. And so, the girl who once doubted her place in the world became a beacon for others, proving that dreams, no matter how fragile, could withstand the fiercest storms. The studio wasn't just a space for art, it was a symbol of what was possible when one believed in the power of their vision. The recognition from the local foundation brought a wave of new opportunities Nayla had never imagined. Suddenly, she found herself being invited to speak at events, from small community gatherings to larger forums focused on education and creativity. "You're an inspiration," people told her, though she still felt like the same dreamer who started with nothing but a vision and hope. One of the most transformative moments came when a national magazine featured her story, describing how she turned an abandoned community center into a thriving haven for underprivileged children. The article highlighted her perseverance and the impact of her studio, bringing her dream into the spotlight. Applications to her art programs doubled within a week. With recognition came pressure. People now expected her to scale her project, replicate her success, and become a leader in community development. The weight of these expectations felt overwhelming at times. "What if I fail?" she wondered. But she reminded herself that recognition wasn't about perfection, it was about staying true to her purpose. To manage the growing demands, Nayla began building a team. She recruited passionate volunteers and professionals, empowering them to take on key responsibilities. "This dream is bigger than me," she realized. "It needs many hands to thrive." Delegating wasn't easy, but it allowed her to focus on what she loved most, connecting with the children. Her newfound platform also gave her the chance to advocate for causes she deeply cared about. She spoke about the transformative power of art, not just for children, but for entire communities. "Art isn't a luxury," she said during one speech. "It's a bridge to understanding, healing, and hope." Her words resonated, sparking collaborations with schools and other nonprofits. Despite the accolades, Nayla stayed grounded. She often returned to the original sketches in her notebook, reminding herself of the simple dream that started it all. Recognition is a gift, she thought, but my purpose hasn't changed. It's still about giving these children a chance to dream. This mindset kept her humble and focused. One of the biggest surprises came when a renowned artist reached out, offering to mentor her and donate their works for a fundraising auction. The auction was a resounding success, raising enough money to open a second studio in another underserved neighborhood. Nayla couldn't believe how far her dream had come. As her influence grew, so did her impact. The children in her programs began winning local and national art competitions. One of her students, a boy named Matteo, was offered a scholarship to a prestigious art school. "You believed in me when no one else did," Matteo told her. Nayla felt a surge of pride and gratitude, but fame brought its own set of challenges. Critics emerged, questioning her methods and accusing her of chasing recognition over genuine impact. The negativity stung, but Nayla refused to let it derail her. "My work speaks for itself," she reminded herself. "I'm here for the children, not the applause." The criticism taught her the importance of staying authentic. She began involving the community even more in her projects, ensuring that the studio remained a collaborative effort. Parents, local leaders, and even the children had a voice in shaping its future. This approach silenced many critics and strengthened the studio's foundation. Recognition also deepened her sense of responsibility. She began mentoring young dreamers, teaching them how to navigate obstacles and stay true to their visions. "You have to believe in your dream more than anyone else does," she often said. "And when you do, you'll find people who believe with you." Nayla's journey took her to places she'd never dreamed of: award ceremonies, international conferences, even interviews with media outlets. Yet, her favorite moments remained in the studio, sitting beside the children, watching them create art that spoke of their hopes and stories. That's where she felt most alive. One day, after an inspiring talk at a global summit, she returned to the studio to find a surprise. The children had created a mural on one of the walls, depicting her surrounded by stars and the words, "Our guiding light." Tears filled her eyes as she realized the depth of her impact. The recognition had become more than a spotlight, it was a tool to amplify her mission. It gave her the resources, connections, and voice to reach more people. But it also tested her resilience and humility. Through it all, Nayla stayed true to her dream, letting it guide her decisions and inspire her actions. As her journey continued, Nayla embraced the duality of recognition, the opportunities and challenges it brought. She learned that true success wasn't about fame or accolades, but about staying aligned with her purpose. Her dream, once a quiet hope, had become a powerful force for change, touching lives in ways she never imagined. Years passed, and Nayla's dream had blossomed far beyond her original vision. What began as a small studio in an abandoned community center had evolved into a network of creative spaces across the region. These studios weren't just places for art, they were sanctuaries where dreams were born, nurtured, and given wings to fly. One of the most touching transformations came from a boy named Arjun, who joined her studio after losing both parents. Withdrawn and silent, He struggled to express his emotions. Nela noticed his quiet fascination with colors and encouraged him to paint. Over time, his grief poured onto the canvas, and he found healing through art. Today, Arjun is a celebrated muralist, transforming cityscapes with vibrant stories of hope. Then there was Maria, a single mother who volunteered at the studio to support her daughter's passion for drawing. Through her involvement, Maria rediscovered her own love for sculpting, something she had abandoned in her youth. Inspired by the community's encouragement, she opened her own gallery, proving it's never too late to chase forgotten dreams. The ripple effect extended to the families, neighbors, and even the city itself. Communities that were once fragmented began coming together at art fairs and workshops. The studios became symbols of unity and transformation, spaces where barriers dissolved and people connected through creativity. Nela's dream had sparked countless new chapters for others. One evening, as Nela sat in her flagship studio, a young girl approached her with a painting. It was a tree, its branches reaching high into the sky with vibrant leaves that glowed in every color imaginable. Beneath the tree were the words, "Thank you for planting the seed." Nela smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. She realized then that her journey was never just about art. It was about believing in the impossible, even when no one else did. Her dream was a catalyst, inspiring others to believe in their own potential. The studio walls were filled with stories of resilience, courage, and growth, proof that dreams, no matter how fragile, could transform lives. Addressing a group of new volunteers one day, Nela shared her reflection. "Life is a series of chapters," she said. "Some are filled with joy, others with challenges, but every chapter has a purpose. The important thing is to believe in the story you're writing, even when the pages feel blank or the ink runs dry." She paused, looking around at the eager faces before her. "You see, your dream isn't just for you, it's a light that guides others. By chasing your chapters, you give others the courage to chase theirs too. The ending may be uncertain, but the journey is always worth it." Her words resonated, leaving the room filled with quiet determination. The impact of her dream extended beyond the studio. Local schools adopted art therapy programs, inspired by her methods. Organizations sought her advice on using creativity to address social challenges. And perhaps most significantly, the children who once filled her studio were now leaders in their own right, carrying her lessons into the world. One of those children, now an adult, wrote her a letter. "Nela, you didn't just teach me to draw, you taught me to believe in myself. When I was lost, your studio gave me a home. When I doubted my worth, you reminded me of my potential. Thank you for helping me write my chapter." As Nela read the letter, she felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude, not just for her journey, but for the people who had become part of it. Every challenge she had faced, every tear she had shed, had led to this moment. Her dream wasn't just hers anymore, it belonged to everyone whose lives it had touched. To the listeners of Chase Your Chapters, Nela offered a heartfelt message. Your life is a story, unfolding one chapter at a time. Some chapters will test you, others will lift you, but every one of them matters. Believe in your dreams, even when no one else does. Because the chapters you write today will inspire someone else's tomorrow. She leaned closer to the camera, her voice calm and steady. Remember, the greatest stories aren't the ones without challenges, they're the ones where the hero rises anyway. You have the power to turn every obstacle into an opportunity, every blank page into a masterpiece. So, chase your chapters with courage, because your story deserves to be told. As she closed the recording, Nayla smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. Her own chapters were still unfolding, and she knew the journey would continue to surprise her. But for now, she rested in the knowledge that she had turned her dream into a legacy that would inspire countless others to believe in the beauty of their own stories.